Hello everyone, I'm Shruti Kuntekar, Marketing Manager at Closing. Thank you for joining us in our Close monthly webinar. We are very excited about Dolby Labs joining us today. We will be discussing their HRSD case study. Here's the agenda. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through housekeeping, talk about Close, followed by the presentation, and finally Q&A. This webinar will be recorded and you will be able to access it later. For Q&A, you're on mute. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section in your Zoom control panel, and our panelists will answer them. For any questions that are not directly related to the webinar, please email us at sales@closing.com. Our social media channels are listed here. You can also access our previous webinars at our Close YouTube channel. About Close, we are a ServiceNow partner since 2011, and we are based out of Santa Clara. We are a full ServiceNow shop with 250 plus customers and 400 plus implementations, and we've been executing projects globally. In terms of services, we provide end-to-end services, including customer service management, end-user portals, and HRSD. We have three panelists today. Frank Spada from Dolby Labs. Frank currently leads HR operations at Dolby, where his mission is to drive an excellent employee experience while managing the day-to-day operations of HR globally. His recent work is focused on building out a tiered HR support model at Dolby, including a new global services team in Poland. We also have Marie Levane from Dolby Labs. Marie is the project manager for the HRSD implementation, and she manages the US operations team. We also have Darla from Closing, and Darla was the project manager for the implementation from Close. Welcome all panelists, and thank you so much for joining us today. With that, I will stop sharing and pass control to Frank.
Great, thanks Shruti. Just loading up the share. Okay. Great, I hope you can all see that. Thanks for joining today, and thanks for the warm welcome, Shruti. I know that those of you looking to implement case management systems, there are lots of decisions ahead. It could be a daunting task, and I'm here today to share our story, some of the things that worked well, some of the things that didn't work so well, and some lessons along the way that you can apply. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Dolby. Our vision is to advance the science of sight and sound to create and enable spectacular experiences. Dolby was founded, Ray Dolby founded the company over 50 years ago with a focus on reducing the hiss in audio recordings. Since then, the company has grown. We've got over 2,100 employees in 21 countries. So we're pretty spread out for a company our size, which poses some unique challenges. We've expanded our innovation beyond audio to a wide range of experiences. Some examples of that with Dolby Vision, we're pioneering imaging technology. With Dolby Cinema, we bring the best audio and video experience to the movie theater. And with Dolby Voice, we bring high fidelity audio and video to enterprise conferencing. So now let me shift gears. I'll tell you a little bit about why we looked at ServiceNow for our HR service delivery. So a little background on our systems landscape. We've been using SAP and then SuccessFactors as our core HR system for many years. And internally, we branded that Employee Central. It's our system of record. We use it for recruiting, performance, compensation, and learning. Since 2016, we've been using it for employee and manager self-service. So we have a lot of automated transactions within SuccessFactors available to employees and managers. With ServiceNow, we weren't looking to replace that functionality, that self-service functionality, but more to supplement it. So we wanted a portal that employees could go to get answers to common questions, a knowledge base, and an ability to raise requests through case management. We also wanted a tool that could grow with us and use to automate other work, such as onboarding. So we look to ServiceNow for that, and you'll see I'm going to refer to this throughout the slide deck as People Care. That was our internal branding for the program. So a little bit more why we chose ServiceNow. Our IT organization had been using ServiceNow for many years, and we had a lot of in-house expertise there, and also saw the opportunity to launch a combined enterprise portal in the future, which is on our roadmap. As a global organization, security and permissions were really important to us, so ServiceNow had the ability to design all the permissions we needed around function, region, HR business partner, client group. The knowledge base was really important to us. Some of the advanced functionality we looked at, version control, and the ability to regionalize content. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. And then automation for future capabilities to automate more tasks that didn't neatly fit into our core HR system, SuccessFactors, as well as future more life events, onboarding activity, which ServiceNow provides. Okay, and then let me talk a little bit more about our HR organization. Over the last couple of years, we embarked on a transformation of our HR function. And my role in that is to centralize and automate the transactional work within HR to create capacity for more strategic programs and business consultation. So ServiceNow really helped us build out this tiered service delivery model. And you can see starting from the left with self-help, ServiceNow allowed us to offer more in the way of a knowledge base and portal and automation of tasks. And then with our support arm, our operations team, we use HR case management to better organize our work. And a little bit of background here, we have 3 regional field operations teams in US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And those teams are more targeted to employee-facing support, cases coming in, and local programs and policies. We also have a global services team in Poland where we're doing more centralized transactions, data management, and system support. So with ServiceNow, those teams are able to work together fairly efficiently. The next phase of the project that we're looking to implement is around ER case management. So we're looking to we are building out a centralized employee relations team, and we'll be using ServiceNow to manage that case activity. Okay, and then I want to highlight some of the values that we set forth, our value proposition. These are some of the things that we use to help communicate this initiative to our leaders and our employees. The first one being we wanted a seamless employee experience, a true one-stop shop. Historically, we had over 15 different HR email aliases. Benefits, operations, recruiting, payroll. Oftentimes it could be overwhelming to the employee, especially if they had a case that might overlap with some of those areas, which often happens. There was also the HR business partner as a point of contact, and many employees would try that avenue as well. So with People Care, our message was simple, that this is one place to go. You don't need to stop and think who's the best person. You can go to the portal or raise a case, and someone will help you out and get you an answer. We also wanted a better way for HR to work. We're pretty heavy email culture. We wanted to leverage case management to help break down and organize work. We also wanted to get our business partners out of transactional work, day-to-day activity, which has worked pretty well. We wanted everyone in the department to be able to collaborate on cases, not just our operations team, but all of the centers of excellence and business partners. And we wanted a way to better automate some of the day-to-day activity through workflows and catalog items. The third thing was around metrics. Historically, we had really no way of measuring our activity, our customer service satisfaction levels, and there are a lot of great tools out of the box with ServiceNow to do that. So we're using those metrics to drive more continuous improvements. And then knowledge-centered support, really key. We wanted employees to be able to get immediate answers to many questions, and the thought that if we had knowledge, that it would deflect a lot of the day-to-day questions coming into HR. We also wanted the knowledge to be dynamic, so specific to region. If I'm an employee in Germany looking for help on how to request a leave of absence, I don't want to have to sort through 20 different versions of leave of absence for different countries. I want to quickly just land on the one article for Germany. So we were able to do that. Okay, and our scope of implementation was fairly broad and ambitious, maybe too ambitious. We went for a big bang approach, global deployment, not just with our tier 1 team, but all of our centers of excellence. All of our business partners had representatives that were trained on the system, could respond to cases in the back end. Of course, we did do all of our triage through the tier 1 team, but we are escalating cases as needed to those tier 2 teams. And in addition, one of the things that we did that was kind of neat from a permissions perspective, our HR business partners have obviously different client groups based on function and region. We were able to design permissions in such a way that those business partners could see all the cases for their client groups, and those are dynamic. So even as client groups change over time, the system will automatically update and show case activity for their client groups. So we did all this to really make sure that the whole function is collaborating and using one system for all activity. This is our implementation timeline. For the design phase, we worked with Cloves using an agile methodology, which was new to us, but worked really well. This was over 7 sprints. I'd say the design phase was, in a way, some of the easier part of this project. The more daunting thing was creating the knowledge, creating content for the knowledge base, and the fact that we're a small team, relatively small organization. So many of our core team that were involved in design were also involved in creating content, creating training materials, change management. And it was really important to us that when we went live, we had a sleek looking portal and a critical mass of knowledge to demonstrate the value of the system. So that's partly why we extended our timeline, and we were really happy with the result when we did go live. Okay, so I'm gonna shift gears and talk a little bit more in detail about our portal and walk you through some of the design elements. So the first thing, this is a screenshot of our portal, and you'll notice a few things that stand out that really talk to the user. One, the system knows my name and my time zone, so it's able to greet me morning, or if it's evening, it'll say evening. It knows that I'm located in the US, and as a people manager, I have the ability to toggle that country because I have employees in different countries, and I can search based on those countries. But the default search bar will just search articles in my country. I'm not forced to manually sort through 20 different countries. The third feature here, we have some status tools just at a glance to see what kind of activity I have open, and those are all hyperlinked to view the detail. And then the fourth thing here, we have these things we call spotlights, and these are more region specific. This one is for the US, so I can see updates that are specific to my country. Another concept, we wanted to streamline the search experience. So you saw in that previous slide that the search bar is front and center. That was the main guidance we gave to employees. If you're looking for help, first thing you do is type in your question or keywords and search. But one of the challenges that we had, and a common practice you might see, is that with search that you're looking for both knowledge articles and potentially for catalog items in ServiceNow. The challenge with that, if I'm an employee looking for help around employment verification, I might see a bunch of different articles and a bunch of seemingly redundant catalog items that go with that. And it could be confusing. The employee might land on the catalog item, but actually they need to see the knowledge base article first. So what we chose to do with our search capability is to only search based on knowledge articles. And every catalog item had a corresponding knowledge article that explained how to use it, and really just a front-facing link to that catalog item. So we were pretty happy with that. We feel like it helped simplify the experience a little bit, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to move forward to the next one. Along with the theme of simplicity, we wanted to make it easy for employees to get help if the knowledge article didn't deliver. So there are a bunch of ways they can do that, and on the search result itself, there's a button to open a case, and then on every knowledge article, there's a blue button to open a case. And then once an employee lands on the request help page, it's really stripped down. It's just one question. What's your question? A common practice that you might see with ServiceNow, what some companies do, is to try to get the user to categorize their inquiry so that it can get to the right group quickly to fulfill. We chose not to do that, primarily because we thought it'd be too complicated for our employees. Many cases overlap between operations, payroll, benefits. It's hard to pick one group, and we didn't want employees struggling to categorize them to the wrong group and then have their case have to be transferred or reassigned. So what we chose to do, we kept it simple. There's no categorization, and then our tier 1 team triages and categorizes every case that comes in. Okay, another feature that we pushed and we're proud of is the concept of these landing pages. And this is a screenshot, again, from the homepage of the portal. These are the most common work life events that an employee might encounter during the course of their employment. It's very much around the thinking of employee experience or employee journey, looking at work from the employee's perspective rather than just an internal HR process. So we created these articles for each of those life events, and they're high-level summaries that it really is a starting point for how to think about getting help with that activity. And then there are links from these landing pages to more specific articles, more tactical details, things like that. But we felt this would be a better way to browse the knowledge base if they are going to browse, compared to just looking through the out-of-box hierarchical categorized type of articles. So again, the way we pushed this to employees was, go to search first, the search bar, if you have a specific question. Otherwise, if you're experiencing one of these most common life events, you might click on one of these articles. These articles are also regionalized, so they're specific to the country I'm working in. Some of them are global, so they'll show up the same for everyone. But again, the concept was we wanted all the content to be dynamic and only show the content that's applicable to the user's country. Okay, another thing we did with the coordination with SuccessFactors, again, that's our core HR system. We have a lot of self-service capability in SuccessFactors. To support that activity, we created a knowledge article for each self-service transaction in SuccessFactors. And then the knowledge article itself has detailed step-by-step instructions. And there's an example you'll see. We use lots of screenshots and illustrations to make it really easy for employees to get through those transactions. Okay, and then shift gears a little bit to talk about knowledge. So this is big picture, our roadmap, how we thought about knowledge when we were embarking on this project. Again, we were starting from scratch. We really didn't have any knowledge base prior to ServiceNow. We had lots of content, outdated content in different places, buried in intranets, not really searchable. For our go live, we set out to document the most common questions and then those landing pages, the work-life team events for countries where we had larger populations. So we knew we couldn't deliver everything. We didn't want to delay the launch too much before we perfected a knowledge base, but we wanted a critical mass of content to really demonstrate the value of knowledge to employees. And we think that worked well. We launched with 200 articles, which was a ton of work. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of how we went about building that knowledge. And then long term, you could see some of our vision here to really continue building the knowledge content across all countries. And then even longer term than that, thinking about contextual search capability, virtual assistants, chatbots as we grow. Okay, so writing, what we found can be challenging. And we struggle a little bit in the beginning of how to get the tone right and style. These are some of the key concepts that we landed on. One, that we wanted our articles to be concise, so that employee wouldn't spend 15 minutes hunting for an answer. So each article we targeted 1 to 2 pages, so we can quickly see. If there's more than that needed, well, then more content needed, we'll put that on a separate article. We wanted the format to be clean, simple, easy to maintain. So we didn't do anything too fancy with graphics. We wanted the tone to be friendly, not a lot of legalese that you might find in a formal policy. And I'll show you an example of that in the next slide. We also chose to use a more active voice, you rather than he, she. And then we also wanted to design the articles from the employee's perspective and resist the temptation to talk about just an internal HR process, how an employee might intersect with that. Really take a step back and think about an employee that knows nothing about HR, how they might approach this content, and some of the questions they might raise. Okay, and then another concept was to empathize with the employee. And this is an example. This is what you're looking at on the left is a first version of an article that we wrote around employees that might be leaving Dolby. And the second one to the right is the version that we published. So the first version, it's pretty dry, it's somber, it's sterile. Here are the steps you need to take if you're going to leave. The imaging we struggled with at first, it's a kind of somber image there, someone walking out. What we replaced that with, so a more inspirational plea to the employee: please don't go. Here are some alternative roles you might want to consider before you leave if you want to talk with someone. And then otherwise, if you've decided to leave, here's some steps that you can take. But that's the shift in tone that we look to carry out throughout the portal, throughout our knowledge base. So some of the takeaways with knowledge, what we found, writing is a fine art. It's hard to get it right. We found getting a style guide in place early on was really helpful to get the team aligned on the standards and even just the common phrases that we would use. Seek professional help. So we did this a few months in. Into the project, we hired a professional writer who was able to help us with editing, and also was really a breath of fresh air because she was able to look at the articles as a layperson that didn't know anything about the internal processes, just what are the types of questions that the average employee might ask, and then reframing that content in a way that was a lot easier to digest. And then the other key takeaway here with knowledge, the back-end maintenance takes a lot of work. We initially approached this as more of a self-service thing with our centers of excellence, other content authors, basically creating content on their own and then logging into the backend system and doing the HTML conversion and setup and all of that. What we found that was really too ambitious. We underestimated the amount of time involved in doing a proper HTML conversion and some of the formatting, the graphics that go along with it. And the other challenge with it was that once we loaded an article in the back end and it was an HTML, it was a lot more difficult to collaborate and revise the content, the text of that article. You kind of lose the redlining capability that you would have in working on something like Microsoft Word. So what we flipped to afterwards was an approach where our content authors were responsible for creating their content in Word and getting the text finalized with whoever else needed to review it, legal, what have you. And then once they're ready to publish, they would share that with our tier 1 team who would be responsible for all the setup in the back end, the HTML conversion, the tagging, so forth. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about knowledge. Okay, and then change management. So obviously really key with any project like this. I actually feel like, you know, as much work goes into the system side of things, there's such a big change in how behavior really that we're looking from not just employees, but from our HR organization as a whole in terms of how we work. So in a way, this was a more challenging aspect of the project than the system side itself. Now I'm going to highlight just a few things here. There's a lot that went into change and training, but one of the things I'll call out first is branding. So we branded People Care. This was important to us to differentiate a little bit with our IT organization who was using ServiceNow. We didn't want employees to get confused between IT ServiceNow and HR. So from the beginning, we consistently used People Care internally. We also wanted a clean message to employees of what is People Care about. So we use these 3 buckets. It's a web portal to get one place for all of your needs. It's an easy way to get answers to your questions, and it's a way to request help if you need it. The other thing we did related to branding was we created a 2-minute overview video that walked the employee through the portal, and it was instructional, but also demonstrated the value of the system. And that, I would say, was hugely successful, just a great way to give everyone a primer to the system, and pretty fun project along the way. We did a little bit of gamification and bribery, which tends to work pretty well here. So the way this played out, as part of our launch communication, we advertised that employees could win free movie tickets if they participated in a little treasure hunt to actually use the system. So these are some step-by-steps that we gave them. They had to search for a knowledge article and then leave comments about it. And if they did all of that, they would be eligible to win the prize. And we had great participation. It was also a way to get comments from employees and hear what they liked, what they didn't like about the system. The response was really positive and continues to be. And then the last point about change management, I would say to continue to reinforce the message. So some ways we did that, we gave our HR business partners email scripts to help announce the change to their groups, as well as how to deflect questions that might come in to people care. We shut down all of our legacy email aliases immediately. We chose to do a fast transition, and we put out of office messages on those email boxes, redirecting employees to people care. That worked pretty well. We also tried to get everyone in the department to be diligent about forwarding personal emails incoming to people care. And we had a process worked out. We have a process where we'll do that, and then assign the employee as the subject person and open for in the back-end case management. We also try to send all of our employee announcements from people care so that responses to those announcements will create cases. Or if we don't do that, we at least try to set up the reply to, which you can do in Outlook, so that, again, responses will trigger cases in the system. Okay, we'll talk about results for a few minutes. Overall, I'd say we had a really successful launch. We've had great feedback, great utilization. During the first 6 months here, we've had 93% of employees visit the portal, which is great. Although we're getting a lot of traction with the portal, most of our incoming cases are through email. And we set out with these two main channels of the portal and email as ways to open cases. We didn't think we could get by with portal alone. Again, we're pretty heavy email culture. So about 12% of our cases are open through the portal. That's actually gone down a bit since launch. But what I will say on the next slide here, we don't think this is that big of a problem, because we're tracking the types of cases that are coming into the system. And most of our cases are requests that couldn't be solved by knowledge. Only about 8% of incoming cases could, in theory, be solved by knowledge. Whether we have it or we don't is another question. This, by the way, was an add-on, a custom field we added on each case, and our tier 1 team picks the case type as part of their triage process. We feel like this is going to be a really useful metric for us. The other takeaway, that the knowledge-based use is highly seasonal. So in December, we were in the midst of our year-end performance review process, and we had a huge spike in portal use and knowledge-based articles viewed. Since then, it's gone down quite a bit, and as you'd expect if there isn't a major activity happening. And then last observation here, our tier 1 ops team is handling the large majority of cases, which is great. We were expecting maybe a little bit higher activity from other groups, the COEs. Again, we trained everyone in the department to be able to respond to cases. So some of that, we have a little bit of a lingering concern. Are there more cases out there that aren't making their way into people care? That's something we're continuing to work on with our COE teams and HR business partners. Okay, and rounding things out, some lessons learned. So one of my big observations from this project, strong collaboration is really key with your implementation partner. And I have to say, Cloves was a great partner to us. Really enjoyed working with them. And a couple of things they did well. They really took the time to understand our business and to design solutions that fit our needs. And we did. I think I walked through some of the examples here of things that maybe did that were not necessarily out of box or custom practice, but really helped us think through those. And also, they push back on us at times so that we make sure we didn't overbuild and avoid getting too complex with configuration or going down the road of customizations that would be very difficult and costly to maintain in the future. Another observation, we found that the system works really well for straightforward cases, tier 1 types of things that have a pretty direct solution. Where things get a little more complicated, we have cases that are more complex, and an example of this would be a leave of absence that has a longer lifespan. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen behind the scenes with different members of HR. We tried some different ways to collaborate with tasks, with the app-mentioned functionality in the London release. We haven't really settled on a great way to do that. So it is an open concern for us, and we're thinking, long-term how to better address those needs. Knowledge, I talked before, it takes time to get right. So make sure to plan that, reserve enough time, especially if you're doing it from scratch, and get professional help. Email notifications, I think this is one of the areas we underestimated a bit in our design. Also, we tried to get a little fancy and maybe and challenge some of the out-of-box messaging. And in some cases, maybe that that backfired a bit. And then one example of this that we thought it'd be nice to open the notification with the greeting, "Dear employee name." Well, that worked really well if it's a customer, an employee in the company where we know the name, the profile's set up in our system. But if it's a customer outside the company, a candidate or a new hire that hasn't been set up, well, the system isn't going to know their name. So we needed to rethink that. So I just say be cautious and be careful when you're looking at your email notifications. There's a lot that gets into play there. And then the last one here, engagement with your extended HR team is key. There's a huge learning curve with using the system, responding to cases, but really the bigger thing here that the team needs to be comfortable with the system so that they can really champion it with employees and really drive a change in behavior. That's a much bigger, more daunting task compared to the system in the end. And it's what ultimately will be the measure of success of a system like this. So with that, those are all the prepared slides we have today, and then we're really happy to open it up for questions. And I think, Marie, you've got a cue there, hopefully.
Yep, I do. I think one of the questions, what's the biggest challenge that you faced, throughout the project? You've discussed some, challenges at a higher level. Is there one that sticks out in your mind as, wow, this one was a tricky one, and, how did you kind of navigate it?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, just the scope of this project of trying to launch the system like this globally was a lot. It was really daunting. And I have some second thoughts if maybe it would have been easier to just do it for the US at first. But I will say the challenge, if we did that, we probably wouldn't have gotten the permissions right and would have to redo quite a bit of work in our design, redesign some of the case management. So I think as difficult as it was, I think that was the right approach for us. And then the second part would be just the task of creating the knowledge base and learning really how to write good content for the first time.
Okay. How did you collaborate and work with Close?
Yeah, yeah. We had a great partnership. We had weekly, weekly stand-up meetings with the Dolby core team and then the Cloves core team. We had sprint reviews to review all the functionality that worked really well. Darla, anything else you want to add there that you
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
yeah.
I think there is a bit of sensitivity involved also with regards to, because the HR team wasn't really familiar with ServiceNow. One of the things that we did in order to ensure that we're just not jumping the gun, forcing the team to make decisions, is we did a lot of working sessions, demonstrations, and really be transparent to the team with the pros and cons. So every time the team would say, hey, can we add this functionality? We don't just say, sure, we just say, why? Why do you want that, right? And
Yeah.
it gets to the point sometimes it's like, just give us what we want. But at the end of the day, we have to take care to ensure that, like what you said, Frank, earlier, we don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that worked well, we had some workshops at the kickoff of the project with our extended HR team that you hosted to really just educate us on the system, not necessarily making design decisions, but just get us thinking about, like, what are some of those, how the system works and how to start thinking about design decisions.
Okay, who manages the day-to-day support of ServiceNow? IT, HR? I might take this one,
Go ahead.
Frank. It's actually a collaborative effort. We have an HR kind of system support team that can make kind of minor changes to ServiceNow, whether it's, labels, looking at adding certain fields. For larger changes and changes that impact both, not just the HR side, but also the IT side, then we collaborate directly with IT, and IT typically will make those changes and then punt it back to us to test, and they'll be the ones who move it through. So it is a collaborative effort. It's not just HR, it's not just IT, but we're very fortunate that we have a great relationship with our IT partners, so we're able to do that. And again, as Frank mentioned, one of the reasons we went with ServiceNow was because we had already had it for our IT team, and we already had really good, knowledgeable people who were willing to help us with that. Next question, I think I'll give to you, Frank. In the lifecycle content, the work-life team, the team content looks like it's only applicable to managers. If an individual contributor uses the portal, what do they see under team?
Yes, that's correct, that there are articles under team that are only applicable to managers. I think there are a couple that are applicable to all employees. I think one was around learning and development. I think one was around hiring contingent workers, which sometimes non-managers will do. But yes, that list of team landing pages will be shorter for individual contributors.
So it is based on the
it's based on role.
in the article.
Yeah, that's right. So the main areas within the knowledge base, the dynamic content, it's tied to role, whether you're a manager or an individual contributor, and then the country where you reside.
Great. What are some ways you leverage ServiceNow to continuously delight the employee from job acceptance throughout their job life cycle at Dolby? How do you incorporate this mindset through the design stage? I think, as Frank discussed, I can take the first pass at this, is, we always try and keep employee experience in mind. It was a huge factor when we designed the portal, is you see what can we do to make it easier for the employee to find the information they need, to ask the questions, to get their information, back to them as quickly as possible. So that was a huge part at the beginning. And as we go through, we've actually had training for our ops teams on kind of customer service and customer care, to ensure that, you know, when employees do use the portal and ask questions and open cases, that we are giving them, you know, being empathetic, giving them great responses, and they're like, wow, this person really helped me, you know, and I had a great experience and interaction. And I think what we'll do in the future with onboarding is we'll approach it in that same way, kind of look at the employee experience and design how can we make this, you know, as enjoyable a process as possible. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, that's great. I agree with all that, Marie. Great job. I'd say also we when we don't have the onboarding module yet. That's a future phase of this project. So so new hires at job acceptance, they actually can't see the portal. It's only when they join their first day of employment that they can access it. Now, we have the system set up so that it sends the new hire a welcome message on their first day. You know, here's people care, here's how you can use it, you know, just a short intro, a link to the video to give them an orientation. But yeah, in the future, we'd love to give the new hires access to the portal as part of their onboarding. That's something that we'll look toward.
Okay, next question. How do you handle sensitive information and tickets, and who can see it? This is a great one that obviously, you know, took a lot of time to think through and design roles and permission wise on the case management side. And basically, as Frank said before, there's kind of a flow chart we have where it starts from when tickets initially come in. Literally no one in our permission groups can see it except that field ops tier 1 team. And it's assigned based on the employee's region. So only, you know, my US team can see the US cases, EMEA can see EMEA, APAC can see APAC, and then Germany has their own group that was carved out. And then basically based on how that tier 1 team categorizes those cases that come in, if it's assigned to a different group, then those people we have in the group are able to see it. For example, if we have a case that's assigned to the US benefits team, the people who are on the US benefits team are now also able to see the case in addition to the field ops team. And as Frank mentioned, HR business partners are able to see all cases just for their client groups. So we kind of carved it out in terms of region, HR business partner client groups, and then in terms of the centers of excellence, and built our permissions along those lines. So again, so people, if we have sensitive information come in on cases, that's our way to ensure that people who aren't supposed to see that information don't. It's completely locked down at the beginning. Only someone from HR can select an option and choose, yes, now this group or person is able to see the information.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the security and permissions. That was really important to us, especially for Europe with GDPR, data privacy protections. We needed to make sure we're following the principle of, you know, sharing information on a need-to-know basis. So we're really happy with how we're able to accomplish all that in the system. The other thing I'll say though, because the things are a little more locked down, when we have cases that span across centers of excellence, across assignment groups, what we do is we'll use the watch list functionality to give permission, you know, as needed to other agents, basically to view and collaborate on cases. So we do have that way to you know, to grant more permission as needed.
And what are unique challenges that you faced, if any, with the global scope kind of this project?
Yeah, so let's see, a couple things. We, for some countries, I believe we had 4 or 5 countries where we needed to create content in dual language. So we wanted the local language plus English in the articles. So we were able to do that pretty easily out of box. To keep the scope of the project small, we didn't try to regionalize the whole interface to different languages. So all the interface is English, but articles in countries where local languages used more prevalently. We wanted to make sure that employees could get answers in their language. So we did that. The other thing I would say, well, we kind of already touched on the security and the permissions by region. Anything else I'm missing?
The spotlights.
Oh yeah, yeah. So on the front, the home page, we had the regional spotlight so that we could highlight events happening locally at a country level. We also had, I didn't quite show you this on the portal, we have links to other HR systems. So there are global links and then there are local links, and the local links will point to all of the country-specific systems or other reference pages for employees in that country.
And I think the other important aspect here is with the change management as well, because obviously different countries, with different offices are used to dealing with HR maybe in very different ways, depending on the HR personnel that are there. So I think, Frank worked really hard in partnering with all our global, business partners and other stakeholders in the region to get their buy-in, to make sure they were on board with this, because in some cases this was a bigger change for certain offices or countries than for others.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have a lot of offices with fewer than 100 employees, where it's common that if employee has a question, they'll just go up and talk to someone, their local HR rep. So that was in those countries, it's a much bigger change. The US is a different scale for us, so not as big of a change. But in those countries, it was there's a little bit of a concern of, well, have we made this process less human? And some of what we talked about with change management there is that, okay, rather than just turn someone away if they come up to your desk for help, let's pull up the portal. Let me show you how easy it is to look for answers, and we'll look together at the knowledge base. And here I can actually open a case for you on the spot and walk you through this process. So we try to keep things friendly and human, empathize with the user.
Do you expect to only use the portal as a route to HR in the future?
No, I don't think I think it'd be hard to phase out email altogether. We're pretty heavy email culture, and then I think in terms of intake process, there'll always be situations where an employee, or let's say a leader, needs to engage HR on an organizational change, or something that doesn't really, it's not a tier 1 ticket. It's something more complicated. So I don't think we would ever say that the portal is the one and only route to everything in HR. But we hope that for most day-to-day things, especially for most inquiries that employees would have, line managers for day-to-day activities, that'll be the preferred route. And as we build the knowledge base and we keep posting more dynamic content on there, timely, type of content, I think we'll get more traction and more cases coming in through the portal.
Okay, last call. Any other questions? No? Okay, Shruti, I think I'll pass it to you for the last 5 minutes here to close.
Sure. That was great. Thank you once again, Frank, Marie, and Darla, for taking time to join us and for sharing your experience. I think this was very informative. And thank you to the attendees for joining us today as well. We will see you next month for our next close webinar. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you.